Cruise news time. Well, did you hear about the Carnival cruise passenger who took to social media, letting the world know that he'd been imprisoned in his own cruise cabin? And did you hear about the MSC cruisers who were denied boarding for being immigrants? And am I looking for sympathy for being fat? Whew, it's juicy. Cruise news and my views. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news and views for your face. On October the 15th, 2023. It's a Sunday, y'all. Happy first day of the week, if that's the way you look at it, and happy last day of the week, if that's the way you look at it. And I'm sure there's some football fans out there, so happy Football Sunday, if that's the way you look at it. All right, enough looking at it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the cruise news, and let's kick it off with this Carnival cruise passenger that blew up on TikTok with his story of imprisonment. Here's a still image of the gentleman. I'm not gonna play the video here. There's a lot of curse words in it. I'd have to edit it out. Jay at the Ship Life did do a great job of editing this video. And so if you wanna see the full video and you wanna hear Jay's commentary on this story, which I would recommend, go check out Jay over at the Ship Life. I'm gonna give it to you Reader's Digest style. Here's what I understand from the story. This gentleman here was locked in his cruise cabin with a guard outside for the majority of his Carnival cruise because of some incident that occurred possibly between him and his girlfriend, I believe on the second day of the cruise. From what I can ascertain is that she went to guest services at some point early in the cruise and said she was looking for her man. She could not find him, and apparently he was found up on the Lido deck with some form of his luggage. So imagine this, a guy sitting on the Lido deck with his luggage, or a piece of luggage, you know, way after embarkation day. And well, whatever happened in the exchange between the gentleman and the people that found him up there on the Lido deck, whatever happened there resulted in a decision being made that he should not leave his cabin for the remainder of the cruise. And to make sure he did not leave his cruise cabin, they posted a security guard outside his cabin for the duration of the cruise. There's several times in the video where he opens the door and there's a security guard there, and anytime he starts to have an exchange with the security guard gets on the horn and they start having a conversation. And the interesting thing about this story, at least from what I can tell, is that he's locked down. He can't leave the cabin, but his companion can come and go whenever she wants. And like I said, Jay from the Ship Life covered this extensively, but the reason I bring the story up and share it with you is because it's definitely a teachable moment. A lot of times people get on cruise ships without the understanding that essentially whatever rules you think apply to you because of the country that you're from, or whatever rights you think you have because of the country that you're from, those are somewhat suspended because the law of the land when it comes to cruising is contained right there in that cruise ship, with the captain being the final decision maker. And so if they want to lock you down in your cruise cabin, they will lock you down in your cruise cabin. If they want to throw you off the cruise ship, you can get thrown off the cruise ship. If they determine that you need to be medically evacuated off the cruise ship and you don't want to go, you still have to get off of the cruise ship. The cruise captain and his officers are in charge of the vessel, and everybody on the vessel, the safety of the vessel, the vibe of the vessel, they're in charge of all of it, and they're going to make whatever decisions, whatever binding decisions that they feel like they need to make to keep everything copacetic. I think it's a shocking realization for some that that things like this can happen. Have you ever been asked to stay in your cabin for an extended period of time? I'd love to hear that story. Leave a comment below. Now, before we talk about the immigrants denied boarding because they were immigrants, let me sneak a little story in about the MSC Euribia. I love these stories because it's so traditional when it comes to cruising. MSC Euribia went to Southampton for the first time. They're getting ready to kick off their winter Northern Europe season, and I do like this action that happens when they go to a cruise port for the first time. There's a tradition there where there's a ceremony where they exchange plaques and basically show love for the port shows love for the ship, and now the MSC Euribia becomes another vessel that has stopped in Southampton. Congratulations, Southampton and the MSC Euribia. All right, let me give you a quick update to yesterday's video. Yesterday, I made the video explaining that sometimes cruises can be hard for fat people, and essentially the video is just a recounting of some of the challenges I've had as a person of size on a cruise ship. And I got questioned, I got some pushback. Two interesting things. The first thing is this is one of the most disliked videos of the last 6 months. And if you haven't seen it, it's a pretty simple video. It's just a retelling of some of the challenges. But I did get an interesting comment. Somebody said that, hey, what's the point of this video? Are you just trying to get sympathy for yourself or sympathy for fat people? You know, what is the deal with that? And I thought it was worth addressing. Certainly, I wasn't looking for sympathy. I feel like if you watch the video, I don't think you were compelled to feel sympathetic. Maybe some did feel sympathetic. But the reason that I put it out there is for a large part of the population, being overweight is a reality. I'm not using large as a pun, but you know, being overweight, being big is a reality. And some people that may be new to cruising may not know what to expect. And some people that are out there that are struggling with their size, sometimes you feel pretty isolated and alone. And so I really wanted to make this video to inform and then encourage. Hopefully you heard my encouraging admonitions throughout the video saying that even though you may be limited, go out there and travel, go out there and experience the world. But honestly, most of the overweight people I know, they're not looking for sympathy. They're just looking for a way to get through the next thing and to have some sort of enjoyment out of life. And so really that video yesterday, in addition to being informative, I hope was also a connection point for people that are struggling out there to be encouraged, to be inspired. And yeah, there you go. Now let's quickly swing over to Brooklyn, New York, talk about a scenario that played out in August where there were a few travelers that had planned to cruise on the MSC Meraviglia that were denied boarding because they were immigrants. Essentially, they were immigrants that had what's known as a combo card for their travel documentation. This combo card comes through an immigration process called advanced parole. Parole doesn't have anything to do with crimes or anything like that. That's just the terminology. But because they had this advanced parole and the documentation that came with the advanced parole was a combo card so that they could work in the United States, it kind of challenged the officials that were working at the terminal there, and they could not determine whether the documentation was sufficient enough to know for sure that the cruisers would be able to return to the country if they left the country. This turns out to be the biggest issue for people checking you in and out of cruises. They've got to know for sure, based on your paperwork, whether or not the paperwork that you have will let you re-enter the country, because you're going to get to leave the country. They're just going to let you on the cruise ship. You're going to get to leave the country, but the cruise line would be in significant trouble if all of a sudden people that were allowed to be on the cruise ship were not allowed re-entry into the United States. And because of the complexity there, a lot of times the people working in the terminal will err on the side of denial so that they don't have this trouble on the back end. It's an extensive thing. There's a process they can go through to call Customs and Border Protection to get these documents cleared. But regardless, the people that were working at the cruise terminal that day, which isn't really even MSC employees, they made the determination not to let several people that had these combo cards on the cruise ship. It's probably something none of us will ever deal with, but there may be somebody out there with immigration status that's trying to go on a cruise, that's working in the US, that has the right paperwork. I just want to tell you in advance, if you're cruising with that combo card, you got to make sure you get it cleared somewhere, probably before the day of your embarkation, or at least know what the process is to help them get you on board. Are you affected by this at all? Leave a comment below. Let me ask you this. Do you like staying up to date with everything going on in cruising? Well, you can be like a big brain genius when it comes from cruising just by watching the show on a daily basis. Get updated, get notified when the show comes out by hitting the subscribe button. Notification bell doesn't cost anything. YouTube will let you know when the show is on. And if you enjoyed it today, hit that like button. This is Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye. Hooray!